America's Unknown Child Has a Name. I only knew about this case because of the former CBS crime drama Cold Case. I used to love that show. They had the best music soundtrack to all their episodes. In the first season, there was an episode called The Boy in the Box, and it was based on a true crime in Philadelphia. For over 65 years, one of Philadelphia's most heartbreaking mysteries, known only by a tragic label, The Boy in the Box. On February 25th, 1957, a young boy's body was discovered in a wooded area of the Fox Chase neighborhood. He was found inside a cardboard box that had once held a baby bassinet from J.C. Penney. He was nude, malnourished, and covered in bruises, with his hair crudely cropped as if someone had tried to disguise his appearance in haste. Despite thousands of leads, posters plastered all across the city, and a dedicated team of investigators who spent decades refusing to let the case go cold, his identity remained a total void in the annals of American true crime. The details of the original crime scene was as baffling as they were grim. The child, estimated to be between 4 and 6 years old, has several distinct surgical scars on his ankle and groin, as well as IV marks on his arm, suggesting he had received professional medical care at some point in his short life. However, no hospitals or orphanage could match him to their records. He was eventually buried in a potter's field with a headstone that read, "Heavenly Father, bless this unknown boy." Later moved to Ivy Hill Cemetery, where local residents and detectives kept a constant vigil of flowers and toys, even as the decades turned and the original investigators passed away. The breakthrough that finally gave the boy his name back didn't come from a confession or a long lost witness, but from the frontier of forensic genetics. In 2019, the boy's remains were exhumed for the second time to extract more viable DNA. Because the samples were so old and degraded, described by experts as being like confetti, it took over 2 years of painstaking work by companies like Identifiers International to develop a usable genetic profile. By comparing this profile to public genealogical databases, researchers located a DNA cousin, specifically a second cousin once removed, which allowed them to map out a family tree that led directly to a prominent family in Delaware County, Pennsylvania. In December 2022, the Philadelphia Police Department officially announced that the boy in the box was Joseph Augustus Sorelli, born on January 13, 1953. Investigators were able to locate his birth certificate and identify both of his biological parents, who are now deceased. While the identification brought a long-awaited sense of closure to the city, the investigation into his death remains an active homicide case. Having a name is the first step toward finally answering the question of who failed Joseph Augustus Sorelli and why he was left alone in that cardboard box so long ago. The identity of the parents was initially withheld by the Philadelphia Police Department out of respect for Joseph's living half-siblings. However, shortly after the 2022 announcement, investigative journalists and internet sleuths used the same public records to identify his biological mother and father. The biological parents, the boy was the child of Augustus John Sorelli, known as Gus, and Mary Elizabeth Abel. Her maiden name was Plunkett. Augustus John Sorelli was part of a prominent family in Delaware County. At the time of the identification, it was noted that he had passed away in 2014. Records indicated he was a veteran and worked in the flooring business. It remains unclear if Augustus ever knew Joseph existed. Many investigators speculate that the child may have been the result of a relationship that ended before or shortly after the birth, and the father may have been unaware of the boy's ultimate fate. Mary Elizabeth Abel, the mom, passed away in 1991. Public records and research suggests that she was the one whose DNA first led investigators to the maternal side of the family. At the time, Joseph was born in 1953. Mary was a single mother, a situation that carried a heavy social stigma in the 1950s. While some rumors suggest the child may have been sold or given away, police have not confirmed the circumstances of how Joseph ended up in the care, or lack thereof, of his eventual killer. The names became public through a combination of the Philadelphia police releasing Joseph's full name and the subsequent work of genealogists. Because the boy's name was Joseph Augustus Sorelli, his father's name was relatively easy to track through Philadelphia area records. Journalists from the Philadelphia Inquirer and other outlets eventually confirmed the identities by cross-referencing the birth dates provided by the police, January 13, 1953, with local birth and death certificates. For years, a popular theory involved a woman known only as M, or Martha, who claimed her mother had purchased the boy from his parents and kept him in their basement. While some details of her story match the forensic evidence, such as the boy having eaten baked beans just before death and his hair being crudely cut, investigators were never able to fully corroborate her claims. With the parents now identified as Mary and Augustus, the investigation has shifted to Joseph's life between 1953 and 1957. Since he was never enrolled in school and had no social security number, he essentially lived off the grid. Authorities are still seeking information from anyone who lived in the 61st and Market Street area of West Philadelphia in the mid-1950s who might remember a small boy matching Joseph's description. Though the parents are deceased, the case remains an active homicide investigation to determine who was responsible for the blunt force trauma that ended his life.